Hey, what's going on, guys? Jason Lohr here with Jason Lohr Photography and Films, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast series Real Talks with Filmmakers. So, today's episode, before I begin, I want to dedicate to my mom and dad who've been very loving and supportive of me, from the day I uh, started writing and filming and just truly believed in me. So, for that, I love them both for it. And, I'm really fortunate to have very loving parents like they are. So this one goes out to you guys. Now, um, that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. Do actually is just my parents' thoughts of me becoming a filmmaker, and yeah, like I said, they were very supportive of me. But the thing was that I had to like prove it too that I was serious about being a filmmaker, especially a writer. So when I first started off like writing, it was just journaling of my everyday life. But then I ended up you know getting a little more creative and started turning these everyday life stories into like just stories of adventure, action, or comedy, and maybe even a little bit of drama too. But this was something that my parents took notice of, was just my love for writing. And they kept buying me journals because they know I was going to finish. After finishing the second journal, that's when they realized that I was serious about writing. And they at first thought it was just for fun too, but then like when I started telling my mom and dad about like the different ideas I have for stories, they were starting to get curious. And I was supposed to be, you know, uh, well, what was expected as a career for me was, a doctor or a lawyer, because let's be real, those guys make good money. I mean, it's hard work, but gosh, all that hard work makes you like, a really smart person because you're constantly like researching, right? But the thing was like just they wanted me to be successful and be smart and also be able to make good money to support myself as well as like my future family, wife and kids and what have you. So it makes sense. I mean, like it didn't at first, but as you gotten older, it's like okay, it's just all about doing something to be able to support yourself and your family. So for me, though, on the other hand, I just kept writing and writing. I also watched a lot of movies as well. And, my parents were very supportive of that because, watching a lot of movies actually got me like learning English. Uh, Also, it got me like writing some more too. And they believed that, writing a lot is very knowledgeable because you're doing more than just working on your penmanship, but you're also learning how to write different languages. And so, because for us, we're Hmong, and, for me to be able to read and write was, very helpful for my parents because they're not fluent in English, but they can only understand so much of it. But it's like I think like they come to realize that this was more than just a hobby now. Especially when I finally asked my dad about buying a camera and making movies, because I watched a particular film that really kickstarted my adventure into filmmaking, and that was the Goonies. These kids were off on an adventure to find a treasure and save their town, and so that's part of my thought process of like just me and my friends, like shoot, instead of just playing at recess, you know we actually go on like these adventures. So it's also the point where I realized that I wanted to do more than just write films, but I wanted to see my oh no, sorry, write stories, but I wanted to see my stories come to life. And that was through the magic of filmmaking and screenwriting. So when my dad got me a camera, and I actually had to work for that camera too. We did a lot of farming. We did vegetables, and we did, flowers too. And so, he told me that if you want this camera, you gotta come help your mom and dad. And so you help us with the harvesting, the planting, and also selling the vegetables. And I did that. And, I was able to save enough to get myself a camcorder, to which, I did a lot of home movies with the family, did some videos with friends. And once I was familiar with the, the camera, I started doing like short movies with my friends and family. And sadly, those tapes are lost. But it just showed my parents that I was really serious about this. And, you know, when I went to college, I started off at community college in Chico, Butte College. And I was taking like the general ed classes, but at the same time, like, I was still, doing my writings and still doing my filming too whenever I get a chance. And, I did apply for, a bunch of film schools, and, I got accepted to the film school in San Francisco State. And this was probably the point where my parents truly believed that this was my destiny, was to become a filmmaker. And just to go from like a little small town of Chico and moving off to a bigger city like San Francisco, it was scary. It was scary for me, and it was scary for my parents, especially since I'm the youngest in the family too. So um you know to see me off like that, like, they were not only scared, but they're also, at the same time, gosh, it was also like a really proud moment too, because it was not just me talking about being a filmmaker, but it was actually me pursuing, filmmaking. And so, my mom and dad, like, we always kept in touch, always checking up on each other, and just hearing about, like, how much I'm learning about being a filmmaker. And then eventually, graduating with a bachelor's degree in cinema, it just really made them so proud. For them, it was just not just talking about it, but also pursuing it, and now also having a bachelor's degree to prove how much I really wanted it was like just a proud moment in my parents' life. And even to this day, it's like they're still really proud because, despite all that I've been through, and despite like the jobs and even the current one that I'm in, like, I'm still pursuing filmmaking, and they're just absolutely proud. It's like, you know, I'm doing what it takes to, make my dream come true. And even to this day, like, while am still pursuing it, it's like just, the amount of work that I put into making it happen is just um, exactly what they wanted to see. Because, in fact, I take it back. It's like that's exactly what they love to see, is like just doing what I love to do that makes me happy, and that's filmmaking. And it's like, just even my father was telling me that, you have an incredible gift to create, you know um, such wonderful art. The power of storytelling is something that should never be taken for granted. And my parents, they're actually storytellers too, I come to find out. My mom was telling me that, after dinner, they would always gather around the campfires and just talk about stories. Because they were from Laos, and that's what they did to not only pass the time, but just to, for entertainment and enjoyment and even inspirations. Because a lot of stories they talk about is like, myths and legends in the Hmong culture. And, my dad, holy cow, he could go on and on with stories of like, his time in Laos. And, you know, even with the myths and legends, but it just kind of reminded me of myself growing up because, I went from telling stories of my or everyday life, or sorry, journaling about my everyday life, to just now telling like stories of, you know, what what could be. So, it's just something that, runs in the family. It's just storytelling. And I think like for my parents to see that, that's passed on to me, and seeing that I'm still pursuing it, it just really does make them proud parents. And very, I'm very happy that they, you know, truly believed in me in every step of the way. So, the story continues, but it's just quite a journey so far. And my parents, that's all they want is just for the story to continue for me.